Well, good morning, everybody. I'm LeGrand Elliott. I'm here on behalf of University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. I'm here today to talk about risk management, but it's going to go along with what he just finished talking about, heirs property. Heirs property is actually as a farmer, one of your agricultural risks. What we've been talking about, how can you farm land that you don't outright own? And how can you take advantage of any type of federal subsidized programming if you don't outright own it? So all of what I'm going to talk about today is going to kind of incorporate risk. I heard a lot of new and beginning farmers that are here. There are great programs under risk management for new and beginning and veteran-owned farms. So this part of risk management is that if you're going to be a farmer in this business, as it goes from a hobby to this is what I want to do, just understanding the risk of owning and operating a farm, it all has a risk to it. Agriculture is probably one of the most riskiest businesses that you can actually go into. And that's behind restaurant and fast food. It's a distant second or third compared to agriculture because there's so many risks involved that you can and cannot perceive. But the good thing about risk management is just putting tools in place to mitigate those risks. Just by a show of hands, when you hear crop insurance, what does that mean to you? What do you know about crop insurance? I'm sure we've all heard the word crop insurance, but do we really know exactly what crop insurance entails and what that means? Correct. I think for so long that when you hear crop insurance, we always equate that to our large row producers, that you're growing big acres of cotton, corn that you need to protect it. And that's part of it, true. But the other part that people need to understand, whether you're farming 2 acres or 2,000 acres, you still have to mitigate risk. And there are programs out there that will help protect you under crop insurance policies that are furnished by the federal government and are very heavily subsidized, meaning that because they want to get more small farmers and ranchers into these programs, they're doing deep discounts of 75 to 80% of cost, which means that the federal government is actually paying the majority of your premium costs should you ever decide to purchase crop insurance. So what I'm working with University of Arkansas is a navigator program, which means that we go out, just like we're doing now, farmers all across the Southeast, whether you're in Mississippi, the Carolinas, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, we go out and have just basically outreach talks just like we're having to let farmers and ranchers understand the importance of crop insurance. So we're doing this in conjunction with what we consider RMA Risk Management Agency. That just means that's an agency under USDA that regulates federal crop insurance. So what happens, it's a public-private relationship. The federal government regulates it, but there's only 14 insurance companies in America that can actually write crop insurance. So there's no deviation on price. Once the federal government sets the price, that's it. Only thing that these private companies can do is actually sell you that product. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit, but the whole common theme is that how do we mitigate risk? So I'll show you the QR code coming up next. This is just who we work with, Southern Risk Management Agency. And basically what we do is we help farmers and producers, help them come up with ideas to help mitigate risk. This is housed at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and we cover the entire southeastern United States. So basically what we do is we have agroeconomists that help farmers and producers to help them come up with opportunities and plans to help them mitigate risk. So I mentioned there are 4 regional centers. We're in the South. I'll go back, come back slide. We're in the Southeast. There are 4 all the United States. So the Risk Management Agency, as it relates to helping farmers and producers mitigate risk and programming, we cover that entire southeastern region right there. There are 4 of them throughout the United States, but we're all in the southern region. These are access to you that are absolutely free. That kind of gives you information on possibly heirs property when we have stuff like that. Or it talks about basic crop insurance or just how to walk your land and mitigate some of your risk. And we'll get into the risk. And some of the risks are just practical risks. One of them is just legal risk. Heirs property is one of those legal risks that you're running into. But the other one is a basic risk, and that's just a liability. Let's just say you do have a farm, you have a beautiful peach orchard, and you let people come out from time to time, let them come out and have a peach picking day. And you get out there and somebody falls into a hole and they twist their ankle, who has the liability in that? The farmer, the owner of the farmer do. And that's because I didn't do my due diligence as a farmer to really walk that place to where I know I'm gonna have a lot of traffic and avoid something like that. That could have been easily filled with some dirt or put caution tape around it or something, but it's your responsibility as the producer or farmer.
What if you put up a at your own risk?
You can do that to a certain extent. You can have people to come out and have a waiver form, if you like. That would be practical. But even in that, some plaintiffs' lawyer worth their salt, will find ways around that. But it's still about trying to mitigate that risk. And if it's that detrimental that to do it at your own risk, we may not want to share that and do that as a public event. So just something to look about when we talk about risk. These are things that we're talking about as it relates to risk, because we have risk all over your farm. You just look at one and pick one, you have risk there. That's a QR code for the Southern Risk Management. So if you have a phone, you can take it. This will take you to all of our resources and websites that are there. They have some really good basic information on just risk in general. Even, just all the way down to just the example that I just gave of just basic farm risk that we all partake in as producers. But yeah, so that's what Southern Risk Management is about. There are people that come together and we help producers on a day-to-day basis. How can we best help them with programming and how to mitigate risk on their farm? Because everybody's farm is different. We may be on the same road, we're across the street from each other, but our needs and our risk are totally different from each other. And also keep that in mind. What works good at somebody else's farm doesn't necessarily mean that accrues to your farm as well. So every farm is individualized and everybody's different. Everybody's needs and what they're trying to accomplish are different. So we're talking about risk. This is just an aerial shot of our farm, a footprint farm. And a lot of times, as farmers, we will insure equipment, we will insure all these things, but we're not really insuring that main ingredient that we have, and that's the property, that's the land itself. So when we talk about heirs property, and protecting that, that's part of risk of what we're trying to protect, but also all the other risks that I have on that farm. So if something were to come through, we had one of the worst frosts in the last 10 years come through tonight. Where does that leave me as a farmer? And I lose everything. And I'm this close to farmers markets, spring, summertime. Without any type of financial protection against this, what do I do? How do I restart? What if I put all of my money into putting everything into the ground and now so I look at all the money on fertilizer, all the money on seed, the labor cost. Now I'm looking at lost revenues now because everything is lost in the field. How do I mitigate that risk? That's what crop insurance is about. It's about mitigating that risk. Now, if I have crop insurance and the adjuster comes out and says everything outside and inside is a total loss. So I've got a crop insurance adjuster just told me that. So now they go back to my insurance policy. What kind of policy did I have? There are a couple of types of policies. Just keep in mind in crop insurance, there's two main types of products. You've got a revenue protection product in crop insurance. It does exactly that. It protects revenue. And then you have a yield protection. This protects the amount of yield that you actually have in the fields. For the sake of a small farm and rancher, we're going to always want revenue protection because it means more to me to have revenue protection for my farm than necessarily yield protection. So what that essentially means is once I got my policy, they asked me for 5 years of my taxes. Anybody familiar with a Schedule F? Right. So if you're going to be a full-time farmer or rancher, you're going to have to participate in any type of USDA program. You're going to have to file a Schedule F. And that just basically equivalates to 1040 EZ as an individual. This is just for your farm. That goes back to what David was saying earlier about even in heirs property, separating your entities. I've even seen a lot of row croppers who've been doing this for years, and I talk to them, and they're still under a sole proprietorship, meaning that they're commingling their personal with the farm and there's no separation. But the biggest problem of that is if the farm goes down, he or she goes down with the farm. in a sole proprietorship. So that's why it's important to really look at what type of business structure as a farmer that you really want to look at. So many times we started off as a hobby, and that hobby takes off. And it takes off for very good reason, but we get so caught up in, yeah, we're producing and we're doing it, we don't looking at our basic structures like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to look at changing our structure. So now we're bigger. We want to do that anyway because it just helps to separate your profits and losses from your business. And you're not commingling your personal funds with, your funds for your business. So that's one of the most important things, if I can say anything as a new and beginning farmer, is to look at how your business is going to be structured, because that's going to dictate everything else that you do from that point. But I showed this slide just to show an illustration that if we had a frost tonight and we're already in the ground planted like this, where does that leave us without any type of financial recourse or insurance? So it's just something to think about. It doesn't matter how big the farm is, whether you have 2 acres or 2,000 acres, there are ways to kind of hedge your bets against agriculture. So we're going to talk about those risks. There are 5 risks that we look at in agriculture on a daily basis. Production risk, obviously. We just talked about, if I got a frost tonight and I ruin all my crops, that's a production risk to me. Price and market. I might be just fantastic at growing anything you can name. How do I market it? That's not my strong suit. We all know that vegetables, once they come out of the ground, I've got a really short shelf life. So where's my market for that? Honestly, your market should already be established before you even put a seed in the ground. That's one of the risks that I don't think some new and beginning farmers really look at, is that, okay, I can grow all this beautiful stuff and I can feed some of it to my community. But like you said, I'm also in this from an entrepreneur perspective to try to make a living and a profit at this. So how does all that tie in? And I don't have a market for it. When I say a market for it, obviously this is a great incubator here that I'm proud that is here, that now you've got a place you can bring your goods in to sell. But even how does that work? How do you get people to buy your produce? What makes your produce different from someone else's? And I think, later on today, we'll be talking about marketing. But that's one of the risks that you run, is that in price. We look at price. Once the cost of, Lord knows, the way fertilizer is now, I just had to go buy about 30 bags of fertilizer, and they cost me $16 a bag. So I'm looking at, that's part of my pricing. It's part of production, but it's part of my pricing. So now I'm going to have to go up on my vegetables to try to recoup some of that cost. So how do I do that if I'm not ready to market my products? You see how that kind of goes hand in hand. That's where people start to tail off a little bit at that part, because they've done everything else brilliantly, but they forgot one of the most important things, is that what's my price point and who am I selling to? So just keep that in mind as one of your risks. And then financial, right? We talked about, I'm a new and beginning farmer. Where do I start? How can I go apply for, some type of FSA loan? Well, that's a risk. What if right now I'm coming all out of the pocket for it? At some point, that's not sustainable, right? So we have to look at, what are my financial risks of running a farm? What happens if frost takes everything I just planted, and do I have the funds to just basically go back in and redo it and let's go again? Some farmers can do that, but that's not sustainable. I might be able to do it 1 or 2 cycles, but after that, I'm really eating costs and I'm at a loss. And God forbid anything else breaks. It's not a matter of if, it's going to break. Those are financial risks that we all have to look at. And legal woes, we just talked about heirs property being one of the biggest legal woes. Somebody on your property, gets hurt, and God forbid one of your laborers on your property gets hurt. So we look at a lot of different legal risks. And the biggest one that farmers we face is that last one, human risk. Think about it. In agriculture, right now you can go to any place and you see how labor has detracted. You can't go in a store. Stores you normally could go into, they open to at least maybe 10 o'clock at night, they're closing at 7. If some fast food restaurants say, go through the drive-in only, because they don't have enough people to staff for the front of the house as well as the drive-through. So I said that to say that labor becomes a very important factor that a lot of people don't bake in to planning their farms. Who's going to be out here helping you when it's, umpteen degrees outside in the middle of July to pull okra? or to get these tomatoes off the vine or to get this squash out the field. That human risk is a big risk because it takes a special person who want to get up every day to get up and farm. We know as you as a farmer, you have that burn and that desire, but does somebody else have that burn and desire to get up and to be able to handle this on a day-to-day basis? It's not an 8 to 5. Farming is 7 days a week, 365 days. And if anybody tells you different, run from them. Because this is where we are in farming, but it's not, you have to love it. And if you love it, it's a no-brainer. But how do we get people there? We need their help. So human capital and the risk of not having that could be implosive. Imagine we got all that stuff planned I just showed you, and all of my help just say, you know what, we're done. Now I've got a human crisis at that point. I've got all this money tied up in the fields. This stuff's got to get out. It's going to wither on the vine. How do I? So I just said that to say in risk management, those are 5 types of risk that you run on a day-to-day basis in very simplistic ways, not even on really high-level ways, but very simplistic ways. These affect us as farmers every day. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind as you go forward. Not to scare anybody, but it's just what not to do. Make sure you guys do it the right way. All right, and that's just about the Crop Insurance Navigator program. We're all throughout the Southeast. We help farmers all over the Southeast, just helping them explain crop insurance. Letting them understand the policy. So many times we'll get something, we'll shake our head like we understand, but we really don't. And so a lot of times you have to get out of signing up for something you don't understand. And you think you have crop insurance. And I've seen this horror story so many times. It's like, well, hey, everything's good. I've got crop insurance, right? So when it happens and they look at their policy based upon what they have, even though they have crop insurance, it's not going to cover them at the levels that they really need it. And a lot of times they come with not understanding exactly what you purchased. So part of that navigational program is to really help you sit down and to be able to help you understand it. Not to understand everything, but to be able to have an intelligent conversation with your crop agent whenever you get to that point of saying, I want to look at having crop insurance. So in just being smart, and you'll hear this to acknowledge him as well, record keeping, record keeping, record keeping. All these programs are fantastic, but unless we're keeping records, unless you know how much you're actually producing, somebody say, okay, we'll do it. How much are you producing, in your season? What are you producing? They want to see those type numbers. And if you start off, capturing those numbers early on, you're number one, you already got a basis of what you're building off of, and you're catching it up from day one versus a farm that's been in operation for years and have to go back and try to recapture that data. So the more data you can put out in front of yourself, and I'm talking about basic data, how much am I spending on seed, fertilizer? I have repairs to some of my equipment. I have to buy equipment. So all those things play a part in just good record keeping, because what happens in crop insurance, they're going to base your amount that they insure you for based upon your taxation for the last 5 years. So that's why those Schedule F forms are so important, because you have to file them not just for crop insurance, but any type of USDA program that they're lending money for. You have to file a Schedule F. And normally they want to see up to 5 years. And that just gives them a baseline average over a 5-year time. How much money have you averaged gross revenue? So let's just say Footprint Farms, I use them as an example. You saw this slide of them. Let's just say they average $100,000 a year. And the Schedule Fs support that that's about where they are. So what the insurance company will do is say, okay, Footprint Farms, $100,000, I can insure you up to $100,000. But I can pick how much of a percentage of that $100,000 I want to cover, which means that if I have a disaster on my farm, how much would it cost me to recoup the money that I put in the ground and to recapture it again and to get us back started? So you may only want to do 75% of the $100,000. So you can insure up to 85%. But the federal government will help you with the subsidy. So let's just say $100,000 in coverage, it would cost Footprint Farms $7,000 a year for that coverage. Well, the federal government says, okay, because you're a vegetable farm and you farm multiple crops, you grow okra, squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, they will give you a discount on the premium. So let's just say I said, $7,000 for the cost of the year. Let's just say the federal government gives you a subsidy for about $4,500. So you're insuring up to 85% of your $100,000, and the federal government is going to subsidize that premium. So $7,000, the federal government is going to give you $4,500. So now we're at about $3,000 or so that we're paying for crop insurance off $400,000 of coverage, right? So that's kind of how that works. So then it works a little bit different. It doesn't work like regular insurance. So if you go get Allstate or State Farm and they say, okay, I'm gonna do a 6-month policy, they want their money right then before they endorse that policy. With crop insurance, you have up to almost a 12-month calendar year to make that premium payment. So the idea of crop insurance is, how do you pay for it and utilizing the subsidy. So let's just say, for instance, you have the crop insurance and frost comes and you've taken your pictures, you have to document when you do a claim. Crop adjuster came down and said, yep, frost got it all. So that means a trigger. Now that premium is now triggered. So now you go back, okay, Footprint Farms insure 85% of that $100,000. So let's just say they're getting ready to get a check written for $85,000. That's their crop insurance protection, right? So let's just say, remember, they still owe about $3,000 for their premium that they have to pay, right? So they're gonna take that $3,000 off that premium. So when Footprint Farms gets that check, everything has been paid. So technically, how much did Footprint Farms pay for crop insurance? They paid zero. It doesn't always work that way all the time, but that's how crop insurance on a basic level is supposed to work. Now there are different, add-ons and options and bells and whistles you can put on the crop insurance, but that's the basics of why crop insurance is important. And that's where it's private insurance, because so many times as farmers we get into, well, I have like area-wide catastrophic insurance, they call it NAP, or something that's sponsored directly for the federal government. Number one, it's free. And it only kicks in if there's a disaster in that entire county, in that entire area. Even when that happens, you're in line with everybody else. So once you get a payout, it's gonna be nothing. It's gonna be mere crumbs compared to having private insurance. What's available? These two programs through RMA, through risk management, again, they're the ones that basically regulate federally subsidized crop insurance. There's two programs they have that are specifically designed for the new and beginning farmer and rancher. One of those is whole farm revenue. These are for farms that operate at about anything under about up to $17 million of total operating revenue. So there are some row croppers that can get this product called whole farm policy, but it also can trickle down to a small farm as well. So what you need for whole farm is basically those 5 years of Schedule F. That's why it's so critical. Before you could even get a quote, the first thing they're gonna ask you for is, we need your Schedule S for the last 5 years. So you say, well, what if I'm a new and beginning farmer and I just started and I don't have a production history? So what they'll do is they'll look at the 5-year average based upon your size. What's the 5-year average being on an operating revenue cost basis? And they'll base it off of that, just like they will base your production off of a farm your size getting started over the last 5 years. That's how they'll get you started with getting you into one of these programs. But the whole point of this slide was to let you know that these two particular products, right now, they're really pushing heavily because this is brand new. They've never had products that came down to a small farmer level like this. So their whole crusade and what we're doing as navigators, number one, let you understand it and get you to a point where you're calling me saying, hey, I think I'm ready to look at purchasing some crop insurance. So that's why we're doing it. We have to kind of build up. This is something that I can't say, okay, who's ready to sign up right now? Because there's so many different variables about it. But I want it to be something, as a business person, you're gonna be in business because farming is a business. That these are just some of the risks that you run, but these are ways of how you kind of mitigate some of that risk. And of course, I just mentioned, why is it important? Access to capital is important in any industry, regardless. So imagine farming. It's like, again, it's one of the toughest sales, one of the toughest things you can get into. One of the most rewarding, but one of the most toughest. You've got to have some type of protections out there because we have no control over Mother Nature. And everything about agriculture, unless you're growing indoors, even with that, it's still based on Mother Nature. So That's the only way you can really hedge your bet against her, is being able to protect yourself. As small farmers, we want to look at protecting our revenue. So, and then it's quick access. So once the crop insurance adjuster comes out there and they say, yes, you have a claim, we're talking about getting our cash, within a couple of days, versus if I just have a free USDA disaster crop insurance, it might be months before I even get a call back or somebody to come out and look at my crops. And then when I do, the little check that they're gonna give you, it was not even worth the time. So not telling people don't sign up for anything that's free, but just understand free means exactly that, free. So this is a copy of RMA. This is their landing page or the website. So all the stuff about crop insurance and all these different things I talked about, the whole farm, the micro loan policies, micro farm policies, all that is embedded into the RMA website. So again, risk management agency is basically just an agency within USDA. And they're the ones that are tasked with handling all this stuff about crop insurance. This is just another slide. If you get to the point where, okay, either you or somebody else, hey, we're ready to talk to a crop agent, on that same website, they have an agent locator. So it'll actually help you locate an agent in your county. And there's going to usually be, in every county, there's usually going to be somebody who'll be able to write a policy in every county. So there's somebody available that can write policies in all 82 counties in Mississippi. That includes vegetables. And in the appendix in that book, it'll show you all the different vegetables that are covered under the Federal Crop Insurance Subsidy Program. And again, how does it help you? Number one, it provides you instant capital. These programs are heavily subsidized, so I would take full advantage because the federal government is probably paying, in some cases, almost up to 80% of the total cost. And it offsets the losses. You got to stop the bleeding, and it's a little bit better. You sleep a little bit better at night knowing that I've got a way to stop some of the bleeding. We'll live another day to fight again. So that's kind of the whole point of that. And of course, the biggest thing, allows the producer to recover more quickly. If I got the money, we can probably go in, rip out everything, plant everything. We may be a little late, but we still can maybe make the window of season. That's where basically having access to those funds make a lot of difference. So, that's it. Like I said, key takeaways. If nothing else, you learned anything today, whether you're farming 2 acres or 2,000 acres, you can get crop insurance. And that's the QR code for that website of RMA. Really good information that's there. We actually have a risk management agency. The regional office is located in Flowood, Mississippi, that covers Mississippi and a couple of other states in the Southeast. So we're proud to be partnering with risk management. It's one of those things where it's long overdue, just to let folks know exactly how crop insurance works and why it's important and how it will apply to my farm or ranch. So just let people know, if you got farmers, I know people that just produce hay. Well, now they have a crop insurance product just for people who graze cattle hay and cut it. So imagine somebody had a policy this past year with all the drought they had, you hadn't been able to cut. Well, now those type farmers have those type of protections now as well. Yep. If there are no other questions, thank y'all so much for listening to me. I hope something I said was beneficial. Let people know that this program exists. And if you have any other organizations that can benefit from hearing what you just heard, just let us know, and I'll be glad to come out and to provide some outreach.